national tragedy. Two airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country.
Resolve.
They can kill people, and we will be saddened by this tragedy, but they will never be allowed to kill the spirit of democracy.
Make no mistake, the United States will hunt down and punish those responsible for these cowardly acts. We will do whatever is necessary to protect America. Is being tested. But make no mistake, we will show the world that we will pass this test.
In a time like this, for whom we pray? A-M-E-R-I-C-A. A, for the airline passengers, pilots, and flight attendants whose lives were hijacked and thrown away as a strike of terrorism against the USA. M, the unknown martyrs who died today, trying to save others whose lives faded away. E, for the emergency workers who gave their all as flaming buildings and fire crashed upon them while their spirits stood tall. R, for the Red Cross volunteers and all the organizations ready to assist in giving blood and saving lives. I, for our independence, that we have the freedom to choose and live in a country like America, even though today we paid the price for that freedom. C, we pray for all the casualties affected by today's events. Moms and dads who will never see their children grow old. Lovers who will never meet, and grandchildren whose grandpas will never hear the patter of their little feet. A, we pray for all Americans that this will make us stronger and more united. We'll shake off the dust, bury our dead, salute our heroes, and we'll ask God, once again, to bless America.
itself was attacked this morning by a faceless coward. And freedom will be defended.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd work for all my life.
Very worried, very scared.
I had to start again.
We will do whatever is necessary
Just my children and my wife.
to protect America and Americans.
Thank my lucky stars to be living here
There's no
today.
reason for this, there's no excuse for
Cause the
this.
flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
All of Manhattan looks like it was bombed during the Second World War.
Some of the casualties are in the collapsed building and buildings around the World Trade Center. I'm told that it's just a scene of rubble and other devastation.
This country will rebound, but what can you say in a situation? There's just not a lot we can say.
This is something that's affecting everyone directly.
I ask the American people to join me in saying a prayer for the victims and their families.
From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of
I
Tennessee,
pray that God will give our leaders wisdom.
across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA. Will is bright in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the
The resolve of our nation is being tested. Make no mistake. We will show the world that we will pass this test. God bless.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grace, for purple mountain majesties. Among fruited plain, oh, America.
Okay, I know it was a little long, but that video that video is what today is all about. That video is why 37,000 young men and women lost their lives. Sorry for me getting emotional. But that video is to remind you that today is not a celebration. Today is a remembrance of what happened on 9/11/2001. So good morning. My name is Deborah Gould Avery. I am the current commander of the Wellington Veterans Group, our club, and this is our annual ceremony that we do every year. Today we are fortunate to have the NYPD 1013 Club with their honor guard and our very own Joe Wolf, who will provide us a presentation of behind the scenes of what happened after the towers came down. So.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to bring our colors up, but just before I do that, I would like to let you know that we're going to play the national anthem, so I invite everyone to stand. And directly following, Congressman Bilirakis will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Honor God. Present the colors. Honor God. Present arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stars and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket red glare along first swinging air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Please remain standing if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms. Honor guard. Post the colors.
Detail. Right, face. Forward. March.
This time, I invite Pastor Jack Martin to give our opening prayer. Honor God. Parade, rest.
This morning at the events in Spring Hill at the VFW, they distributed cards with pictures of those who died that day. Some of those kids were 12, 13 years old. Today they're in their late 30s. Those are the ones we pray for today, for God to strengthen them. Father, we all can remember that moment in time where we either turned on the TV or our phone rang and someone told us what happened. And forever etched in our memory are the pictures of those towers on fire, and Father, eventually those towers falling. But God, too many things have changed over the years. We need to be reminded. We need to hold fast to the truths of this nation, that we are one nation under God. I ask you today, Lord, just as each speaker does their part, that you would guide them and strengthen them, give us ears to hear what it is you want us to hear, and we'll give you the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Honor God, stand. Seats. This time I'd like to invite everybody to take a seat. It is my honor and privilege to introduce some of our elected officials. They're in the room. I'm going to start with Congressman Bill Arakis, if you would just please stand. State Representative Jeff Holcomb. County Commissioner John Alaco. Now our very own District 4 County Commissioner Jerry Campbell. And we have another special guest here today, recently retired NYPD Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner Robert Ganley. Thank you all for being here today. At this time, I would like to invite Congressman Bill Arakis up to the microphone to have some brief comments about 9/11.
Thank you so very much. I guess this stool is for me. All right, there it goes. Well, thank you, though. Thank you. Thanks for the gesture. Folks, I really appreciate this very much. And Commander, that video was very appropriate. And every child that does not remember 9/11, and children do not, they need to watch this video over and over and over again.
You do such a wonderful job. We appreciate you so much. You're patriots. So there are some events, folks, that forever alter the landscape of history. These monuments and how we respond to them reveal a great deal about who we are as people and what we value as society. Can you hear me? Take this. Do it like this. Thank you. 9/11, so September 11th, 2001, 22 years ago today. Hard to believe. Our nation faced one of those pivotal moments. Personally, I remember the horror, frustration, and anger I felt when I learned of the first attacks. An hour later, we saw the attack on the Pentagon, followed by Flight 93's crash in Pennsylvania. And we all knew without question that our country was enduring a well-thought-out, coordinated terror attack against American civilians. This was unlike anything we had ever previously experienced. No American will ever forget the horrific images and tragic stories that were broadcast in the following days. Those stories and images broke our collective hearts, and we all grieved for 2,977 lives that were taken too soon. Many of us knew someone impacted, and even if we didn't personally know someone, we identified with the pain their loved ones felt. After all, those innocent lives that were taken could have easily been our brothers, our sisters, our children, or our friends. And I'm sure that there are some parents or maybe friends of victims in the audience today. God bless you. And we feel for you. May your loved ones, may their memories be eternal. In addition to the collective heartbreak, there was a sense of tremendous unity during the days that followed 9/11. There certainly was. We were all one people, ladies and gentlemen. We were all Americans, and what brought us together was so much greater than our differences. Don't you agree? During that time, I also remember a tremendous feeling of pride swelling within our country. We need to get back to that, folks. The term hero gets used too often, and our veterans, our firefighters, all of our first responders, they are true American heroes. Don't you agree? Not our athletes, not our movie stars, definitely not our politicians, but again, our veterans, our firefighters, again, our police officers, all of our first responders. They are true American heroes. We must never forget that. And I know you won't, but we've got to teach our children, folks. And I hope there's some young people here today in the audience. I know there are. Please spread the message, folks, to others. But on that fateful day, and many that followed, we saw true acts of heroism abound, didn't we? Countless fire rescue, police, and other first responders ran into burning buildings, knowing that they likely would not survive, but trying to save as many people as possible. And you know what? That happens on a daily basis. Let's thank every veteran, really, every police officer, every firefighter, every first responder for their service on a daily basis. We love you and we thank you so very much. But that day we saw co-workers, friends, and even strangers helping each other, doing everything possible to ensure others reach safety, didn't we? We saw passengers on a plane, regular, everyday Americans, hatch a scheme to thwart further disaster, knowing that even if they failed to land the plane safely, they could keep it from being used to kill more people at its intended target. Let's roll, let's roll. We're all Americans. Yes, 9/11 revealed who we are as people and what we value. Our enemies sought to destroy our way of life. Instead, they discovered the depths of our resiliency, the strength of our resolve, and our unwavering commitment to one another. United in our love of freedom and for our fellow Americans, we vowed to make the world a safer place and to ensure a brighter tomorrow for future generations. Now known as Patriots' Day, September 11th, today, has become a day to honor the victims of this horrific tragedy through service to others. It's not a day of celebration, as the commander said. It's a day of remembrance. That is the legacy that is left behind in that aftermath of our collective trauma. On a macro scale, we also saw enlistment in our armed forces spike after the attacks. In total, 181,510 Americans enlisted in the ranks of active duty service, and more than 72,000 joined the enlisted reserves the following year. These brave men and women, and you know who they are, who represent the best among us, stepped up to wage a war against terror itself. They were committed to taking the battle to the enemy, to protect our homeland from further attacks. They wanted to make sure that future generations would know that it is like what it's like to live in a wonderful, free world of terror. So in other words, a world free of terror. These men and women served honorably and sacrificed greatly. Over 60,000 members of our military were killed or wounded during Operation Enduring Freedom. Most were wounded severely in Operation Iraqi Freedom, and we take care of our veterans here in Tampa Bay, don't we? I know there's been a lot of heartache surrounding our botched withdrawal from Afghanistan that left behind Americans, allies, and assets, and claimed the lives of 13 U.S. service members, unfortunately. Many of their families are still fighting for transparency and accountability for the poor decision-making that led to their deaths. I will continue to support them in this endeavor, and I know you will too. Regardless of how you feel about the war or the management of the withdrawal, we can all agree that the Americans who served in these operations did their duty and carried out the mission they were given with great distinction and honor. It is also true that during the 2 decades while they were executing this mission, we did not see a large-scale terror attack on American soil. And that's overlooked, but it should not be. It's significant. This is an important and meaningful, as I said, accomplishment and a tribute to their unwavering efforts. President Reagan once said, and I quote, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same." On this 22nd anniversary of the terrorist attacks on our nation, may we remember the victims, honor the heroes who responded to the crisis, and rekindle the spirit of unity that spread across our country after the tragedy. It is through that unity that we find our best path forward. So may God bless you, each and every one of you. May God bless our first responders, our veterans, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Congressman. And I want to start off by thanking the Veterans Club for putting this together every year. I think this is our third year we've been invited, and I think I can confidently say that we promise to come every year we're invited and give you something different every year. To talk about remembrance, I don't know about you, but I don't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. So that's why it's important that we meet every year and go over a little bit of what actually happened. Now, the two videos, the video we just watched, and the fantastic speech the Congressman, probably his assistant, wrote, pretty much covered everything, right? But, so there's a couple of slides in here I'm probably going to go over pretty fast, but there's a couple I want to really focus on. So with that, this is our presentation for today. And we're dedicating it to those 13 men and women that lost their lives at the withdrawal. Essentially, that was, so far, the end of the conflict, the 20-year conflict. So, this year, I went through the video from last year. I'm going to ask you to hold your applause until the last person, please. I'd just like to introduce our crew because they put a lot of work in. This is all on our own time, our own money, you know, putting together these uniforms. Believe it or not, some of us don't fit in our original uniforms. I do, actually. So I'd just like to introduce you to our club president, Artie Babcock. Just stand up, guys. No clapping, please. And you can sit right there down. Rafael Diaz is really the guy that kind of founded the whole honor guard, so I really appreciate Rafael for that. He's our coordinator. And Louis Hollander. Louis Hollander has a really special place in my heart. Louis retired many, many years ago. I won't tell him how many, Louis, but his entire retirement has been towards keeping the memory of the Transit Police Department alive, and sending out newsletters. And he also volunteers for a helpline for the veterans every day. He's a veteran himself. So, Louis, thank you. You can give him an applause. He deserves it. Then Kevin Balu, all right? Kevin Balu, another one of our Honor Guard members. He was also working during 9/11, as was Ray. Thank you, Kevin. Jerry DeCamio, you met last year. He was a detective in the police department, then he became a chief, which apparently it's pretty easy if you're a detective, I guess. And so he retired from 2 police departments. And you're not single, right? It's probably a good catch. He's got 2 pensions. Of course, me, Joe Wolf, volunteer resident, retired lieutenant, 25 years NYPD. And then a new member of our group for at least 9/11 remembrance is my friend Jim Skalowski. I get that right? Skalowski. Sorry, that's not an easy one, right? And Jim is actually a retired firefighter. He retired at the rank of captain, but during 9/11 he was actually a firefighter. He was assigned to Astoria, Queens, so you know Astoria, Queens, and he responded to 9/11. He worked down there on the pile with a lot of people. So Jim has a really unique perspective here, you know, what we call the pile cleaning up. So stand up, Jim. Thank you. How about a round of applause for our entire honor guard? So, you know, we like to use this phrase, we will never forget, right? Well, you know, in order to never forget, you have to remember, right? And I know there's a lot of people in this room that have trouble doing it, including me. I don't know what I have for breakfast. So we're just going to focus a little bit on some of the things that happened and the timeline. I think it's quite interesting. I'm going to point out a few things you're probably not aware of. It's just about me. You know, I spent a lot of time, I retired 10 years after 9/11, so kind of know a lot of stuff that went on and kind of devolved everything, but we'll skip that. So we know the planes both hit the towers, and where they took off from, so both the planes that hit the towers took off from Logan Airport in Boston Airport, and they were both headed to Los Angeles, and it was important for them to be fully fueled because they wanted the fire. So that's why they selected those two planes. But the really interesting thing, and it was kind of mentioned this morning somewhere, but I don't think today, is the tower that got hit first is the tower that went down last. So the tower that got hit second went down first. And those are the times there. I just want you to keep those times in your memory, specifically 8:46 and 9:03. And we know what that looks like, we just saw it. So we had all these emergency responders respond, and you know, Jim, I don't know how you guys did it, but if I looked up at that building, I'm like, I ain't going in there. I might go inside, but I'm not going upstairs. So interestingly enough, again, and this really ties into my whole piece here, is that the South Tower was declared secure at 8:55, and they told everybody, stay in the tower, stay in the tower. Half the people didn't listen. They were like, no, I think I'm getting out. This is before the South Tower got hit. It's only the North Tower. And at 8:55, the FDNY begins ascending the North Tower. And that's key because they're on their way up. So the further up they go, the longer it's going to take for them to get out. And then about 5 minutes later, both towers are ordered to evacuate. At 9:03, the South Tower struck. Now, if you were up on one of those floors that was above where it got struck, you're pretty damn happy that you decided to leave. And didn't listen to the Port Authority who told you to stay in place. And they didn't do anything wrong, that was just their procedure, and it was probably smart for a lot of incidents, but it wasn't smart for this one. So, at the same time, in Washington, D.C., Congress is in session. The congressman's father was a congressman at that time. He was in the Capitol. So he was in session. And the Speaker of the House recessed at 9:20 a.m. 9:20. So basically, they left the chamber and went to whatever they were going to do. 9:22, all those bridges and tunnels were closed. Now, you know it's really big when you start calling people in that are off duty. So the NYPD and the FDNY recall all their personnel. And so this is before the Pentagon was struck. And the Pentagon is struck at 9:37. Now we kind of like, oh, okay, that's enough. All traffic is directed to land throughout the country. I had some friends here from Australia. I realized that they didn't walk around all their traffic, just nothing could come to the United States. But here's the interesting number that I wanted to point out, especially the congressman. At 9:52, the Speaker of the House, I think it was pro temp, he wasn't actually the actual Speaker at the time, the temporary Speaker. That's what pro temp means, I think. And he reconvened for a prayer at 9:52. So now everybody goes back into the Capitol, which you might have noticed that was one of the targets, we believe. So back to New York, the World Trade Center is actually fully evacuated. So I made a big point of this last year. It's really important that you understand that no one died that could have been saved, except for the first responders. Every single, to the best of our knowledge, every single civilian was evacuated from those two buildings before they collapsed. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. That's the most successful rescue in history. Every single person. The people above the fire couldn't be rescued because the escape routes were all closed off. So those are the ones that died. Every civilian that died was above the fire. Then there was an effort put forth to evacuate first responders, and for a whole bunch of reasons, and my friend Jim and I had this conversation a few days ago, you know, some of the guys didn't get the radio transmission, some of the guys were just like, no, we're gonna keep going up, we're not coming out. And then some of the guys didn't have time to get out. So it's a whole bunch of reasons. We're not gonna fault anybody for that, it is what it is. And that's what I mentioned in the third slide. So now at the same time, we have this Flight 93, which departed Newark, and we believe it was intended for the capital. I don't think they still know that for sure. Everybody says it, but I don't think there's actually any documentation for that. 13 passengers were on board, and you know, fortunately we had cell phones on those, airphones, whatever they call them. They made 37 phone calls, and then they learned about the other hijackings and what they were doing with the planes. So they decided to fight back. So remember now, the house is in prayer, but the passengers in 9:57. So now this thing is heading for the capital, and the house is in prayer at 9:52. That's not a good formula, but the passengers revolt. So the plane didn't hit the capital. We know that it was brought down in Shanksville. We'll talk about that for a brief second in a few minutes. But at the same time, dozens of firefighters are gathering in the lobby of the South Tower. South Tower comes down before the first one, a couple minutes later, 9:59. That tower took 11 seconds, so nobody was getting out, no matter how fast they could run. North Tower was evacuated first, then the North Tower evacuated first responders. So, this is the guy's name. I don't know if Congressman, are you familiar with this? Yeah? He was the pro tem speaker, and in case you don't know it, that's the third in line for the presidency. So the Secret Service had a record of securing him and bringing him to a safe location. And that's when the Shanksville flight went into the ground, 10:03. So a real tight timeline there, real tight timeline. Then Vice President Cheney directs the Air Force to engage civilian aircraft, which included, if they felt it was hostile, to shoot them down. A little fuzzy on the wording there, and nobody was really sure about it. Fortunately, didn't have that. At 10:20, NYPD helicopter, which was, it was impossible to evacuate from a helicopter because of the heat, the huge amount of heat. The helicopter doesn't really work in that type of turbulence. But they reported that the tower was leaning. I remember hearing that on the radio. And that's when it got serious. At 8 minutes later, the North Tower collapses in 11 seconds. It takes 11 seconds for those buildings to come down, 110 stories. And like I said, all air traffic was directed to land. That's what we were left with. So, another little like tidbit. In less than 2 hours, 2,600 people were killed. And that's just counting the civilians, not the first responders, just the civilians. They killed 2 people in less than 2 hours. Over 400 first responders lost their lives. These are our fire department brothers. It's a picture of every one of them. 343. Port Authority police, they seldom get mentioned. I took all the pictures here. I just wanted to kind of point out that a lot of ranking personnel were killed in that building with them, so they were right beside the men and women that they worked for. That's a 3-star chief. This guy, George Howard, has a little bit of history behind him. I don't know if you remember that name, but again, we don't remember unless we recall, right? So I'm recalling to you the memory that George Howard's mom gave President Bush his shield. And I'm told that he carried that shield throughout his presidency in his jacket pocket. I always made sure he had it in his jacket pocket. That's George Howard there. Just a little tidbit. Female captain, police officer, was killed. That's actually was their police commissioner. They called him a superintendent. He was killed in a building. And then his female captain was killed in a building along the rest of the 37 men and women. And those are all the pictures. And this fellow down here, he's a rank of inspector. So really high-ranking people. NYPD only lost sergeants. What a thing. Here's our NYPD people, 23. I've got this fellow here, badge. I happened to pick it up this morning. They gave us these badges, and each one represents somebody who was killed. I have one head. And I always like to point out, he was on film. We were one of the film guys. We had people who do that, and he ran into the building to film the event and never got out. Then my buddy here, Timmy Roy, was part of traffic division. He was going to court, he was off duty, out of uniform. He ran into court, he ran into the bills right across the street. So a lot of people, nobody held back, everybody went. Ray Suarez, a friend of mine in Raphael, he came from the other side of Manhattan in a taxi cab, just to help out. So, just contrast, these are who were the people that were killed in the building. This is how many NYPD people were killed or died from exposure. Hundreds. So, real quick, this is the Pentagon flight. Left out of Dulles, which is Washington, D.C. Went out, came back, crashed into the Pentagon. They left at 8:09, arrived at 9:37. And I kind of wanted to compare this a little bit. It doesn't really compare, but Pearl Harbor also took 2 hours, the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And there were 24 women killed. So it's amazing what can happen in 2 hours. Now, we talk about first responders in my book, and if you actually look up the dictionary, first responder is somebody that takes a skill that they have and they use it on the scene of an incident, a needed scene. So if you know how to do CPR, you grab the defibrillator off the wall and you start using it on somebody, you're a first responder. And in my book, we're all first responders. We're responsible for our own safety. These people became first responders. So this is the guy, one of the most famous ones, Todd Beamer. He's the let's roll guy. But like I said, the congressman did. Sorry. Stole all my presentation. But all these people got together, and if you listen to any of the voice cockpit recordings and some of the phone calls, because they're on the phone with people, it's pretty terrifying. And they kind of knew they were going to die, but they weren't going to let them kill your father, Congressman. So that's pretty much the end. I just wanted to mention, if you've never been here in Shanksville, they have a really magnificent memorial. It's nicely done. It's got a nice theme behind it. It's way out of the way. It's like 2 hours off the main road, but it's really a beautiful memorial. It's worth visiting. And they have a panel for everyone on that plane, and it actually tracks the direction of the crash. The Pentagon, 184 people killed. And they list them on the website. It's a mixture, but they list them as employees. I don't know why. Most of them are military people, and they were working at their desks. So, even though we call them first responders, they're kind of just victims. They didn't even get a chance to defend themselves and save themselves. And then they have 10 contractors also, which were definitely civilians. And then, of course, we have the 59 people that were on the plane. And we know what that looks like. So that was over in a heartbeat. Nothing could change. As far as I know, no first responders got killed in the rescue effort. But really nice memorial. There's one of these for every person killed at the Pentagon. Very nice. I've been to all these memorials. And then, of course, America Responds. And we all remember this picture. I think it was in one of your videos here. And just a little tidbit for you. I don't like to joke around too much, but anybody know when the last time war was declared? I won't put you on the spot, Congressman. Huh? No. The last time we declared war in a country was World War II. But it wasn't Japan. It was Hungary and Romania, 1943. So, I was trying to see if I could find pictures of all these soldiers that were killed. So now we're down to the response, right? So that was the next thing we had to do, was respond to these people killing all of our civilians. And I found this site, very nice site. If you put your mouse over the picture of the person, it gives you a big history of them, the whole history. Every single soldier is there. I got all the pictures for you. So I want you to think about how many people were killed in Afghanistan, because that was the start of the whole thing. There was a lot of soldiers killed in the whole conflict area, but the whole start. How many soldiers were killed in Afghanistan? And I'm going to play every picture, so start counting. Ready? That was only 80 seconds. Seems forever, right? Huh? Anybody count?
2664.
Guys up here, cool. 2,402, plus 60 outside the theater, so it wasn't Afghanistan, but it was during the conflict or related to the conflict. But only 1,921 were actually killed in action, in hostilities. The rest of them were killed in just operations. A lot of servicemen died every day just training. So, but that was just Afghanistan. Let's add 4,500 in Iraq. Let's add 1,822 contractors in Afghanistan. Let's add 3,793 contractors in Iraq. A lot of people died in this war. A lot of those contractors are retired military people. Plus 18 civilian, well, we don't like them anyways. So, 20,000 wounded in Afghanistan. That's just wounded, just Afghanistan. So according to this website here, 7,057 were killed post 9/11 in war operations. And then how about the suicides? So since that 9/11, 30,177 soldiers committed suicide. So from time to time, just about wrapping it up here, we should learn how to spell, right? And then learn some grammar, right? Our freedoms are challenged, and there is sometimes a high cost to keep. We We are always a heartbeat away from a tragedy. We have to be prepared. But we will never surrender. We will always rebuild. So with that, in closing, we still have a little video for you. I'm going to invite Captain Jim up here to ring, I can't say his last name. Jim, invite you up here to ring our bell. And while you're walking up here, I'm going to explain the 4 5s. So the 4 5s, and only a firefighter can actually do this right, is a signal that they use in New York City to signal the killing or the death of a firefighter. And they've always done it every time a firefighter dies. A little interesting history behind that is the first time it was used for a civilian was when Abraham Lincoln was killed. So 4 5s are used for other than firefighters. So if the president dies, I'm sure they probably did it for Kennedy too. And it's a signaling device that they use when there were no telephones. It was really hard to get signals out. You ready, Jim? So I would invite the honor guard to attention and 4 5s. Honor guard, and hut. Present. Up. Order, arms. Seats. We will never forget. So before the commander plays, you have the video. No, you don't. You don't have the video. Okay, good. Then I would like to let everyone know that we really appreciate you coming out today. I want to thank the commander again. And remind you that the bar and grill is open for lunch. They'll be happy to have your business. And the honor guard will be in there. I invite everyone to come up and take photos if you'd like. We have the American flag, the Florida flag, the NYPD flag, and the New York City Fire Department flag. So that's all we have. I thank everyone again. How about a round of applause for the Veterans Club?
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, 1013 NYPD 1013 Club. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. And as he said, the bar and grill is open and it has some New York style food back there. So enjoy if you wish. Thank you for coming.